Hello, everyone. I'm back to continue where I left off. I'm just setting up my screen so it all looks good. Okay, we're ready to go. So let's see. So we nearly completed the miniature marine reptiles dusting. Here they all are. I'll show you how far we got. So these are all of the miniature marine reptiles, mostly plesiosaurs, but also ichthyosaurs and mosasaurs and other things as well. I ran out of space, so I had to stop the stream. But I've now set myself up with another table to the side, so we can now finish off. Hi, Jetor, good to see you again. So, greetings to you too. These are a pair of battling Sauropterygians. They're from Gacon. The company is Gacon who creates these. They've got these acrylic rods to support them, and they are, well, it's an interesting pose. They're not particularly accurate. And this one here seems to be doing the backstroke. I don't know if plesiosaurs swam upside down very often, but it makes a change. There's no reason why they couldn't. I've also got some new earbuds. The previous one that I was using got completely decimated. I think this is supposed to represent a Pliosaurus, and this a Plesiosaurus. But to be honest, I can't completely remember off the top of my head. Okay. Where did I put the duster? Here's the duster. What's this? Ah, this is a tiny little coelacanth, and I think it has fallen out. You can see it's got a bite mark in it, and this has fallen out of the jaws of one of the plesiosaurs. Ah, this one here. So this usually fits in the mouth of this Fame Master 3D puzzle. The trouble is it always wants to fall out. It does balance in there if you catch it just right, but I'll leave it out of the jaws for now. Oop. And to be honest, for a tiny little figure, that's a really good coelacanth. It's obvious what it is. Yeah, it's Fame Master puzzle. They're really quite nice models, actually. Yesterday, I was looking, if you remember, at the Fame Master Spinosaurus. This is a metal Chronosaurus head, Chronosaurus skull. This is an exclusive to the Chronosaurus Corner Museum in Australia. The curator of the museum recently visited Nottingham, where I live, and gave this to me as a gift to say thank you for hosting her. She also gave me some casts of some Chronosaurus teeth, casts of real teeth. Hello again, Attachosauridi Reviews. I'm glad you found us again. So I'm really happy with this. It's a keyring, actually. You can see it's attached, but I'd rather display it on my shelf than use it as a keyring. My wife was also given the same keyring, and she uses hers for its intended purpose. Hi, Captain Dino. Capitan Dino, sorry. This is a Chinasaur. I don't think it's any particular brand. I've seen it in several different variants, slightly different sizes, slightly different color variations. It's not the best figure in the world. And it's almost big enough to go on the shelf with my larger plesiosaurs, but I decided that I would squeeze it on here with the small miniatures. Everything on here is a Kyoto. So we're going to go through these Kyoto miniature marine reptiles now one by one. I think these are probably the best in terms of accuracy and attention to detail. I don't really understand how their sculptors get so much detail into such a tiny, tiny model. Really, every tooth is in position on this little thing, and the head is probably not much bigger than half a centimetre in length. I have to try and remember to hold this up to the camera. Otherwise, all you get to see is my Dinosaurs of China shirt logo. So this is the Plesiosaurus in the more recent set of marine reptiles. It shares this blue base, so you can distinguish this set from the other Kyotos. This is an Archelon. I don't have many turtles. When it comes to turtles, I'm not an exhaustive collector. I'm not a completionist. I think it's because where do you end if you start to collect turtles? Do you just limit yourself to Mesozoic turtles, land-based tortoises as well? So I've only got the occasional Archelon figure and don't really worry too much about having every single turtle there is on the market. The weird thing is, if turtles had become extinct at the end of the Cretaceous period, and there's no reason why they might not have, and let's say ichthyosaurs survived to today, we'd think of ichthyosaurs in the very same way that we think of turtles, you know, a modern group, and we'd think of turtles as this incredibly unusual, bizarre group of extinct creatures. And then people would say, why isn't it a dinosaur? Why aren't turtles dinosaurs? Because I get this a lot about why isn't a plesiosaur a dinosaur? Well, just because it's extinct, you don't ask that question about turtles or crocodiles. It's only because they're alive, so you don't think of them in those terms. This is an ichthyosaur giving birth. You can see the little baby being born. Of course, ichthyosaurs gave birth to live young. They didn't lay eggs, didn't crawl out onto the land. And so this is a live birth scene with the ichthyosaur being born tail first, so that the little baby has as much time as possible after being born to get up to the surface of the water to take its first gulp of air. Again, this translucent blue base to distinguish this set of marine reptiles from the other chiodos that represent the same or similar species. These are incredibly delicate. This is a plesiosaur. I think it's supposed to represent Plesiosaurus. And to be honest, I think if I dust this too heavily, its head's going to come off. You can just see how easy that does pop off there. So I need to be really gentle. And I might never get it back on. We had a look at a plesiosaur skeleton of a Cryptoclydus earlier on today. The detail in the skeleton of these tiny chiodo models is spectacular, really. I mean, the detail and level of accuracy is good enough to identify this certainly to the genus level, if not to the species. Really are amazing. So that was the skeleton, and this is the fleshed out version of the same creature in the same pose. Again, beautifully sculpted. My webcam doesn't capture the details, it doesn't do these little models justice. But you can take it from me, if you don't own these yourself, that these are, yeah, spectacular. I think it would be wonderful if Chiodo branched out into larger, more traditional figures of the style of Safari Limited or Collector, Papo, in a more robust, tactile material. I think they'd really give the other companies a run for their money. And if they use the same sculptors, that would be an awesome line to collect. But they tend to just stick to these miniature versions. They've got that side of the market covered. They've found their niche. This is the only figure on these stepped shelves up here that isn't Chiodo. This is a glow-in-the-dark plesiosaur from the Lost World Jurassic Park egg. It's not very accurate. In fact, it's really inaccurate. But it's obviously supposed to be a plesiosaur, so it ended up in the collection. I had to glue the head on because the plastic is quite brittle. It's bendy, but it's also brittle. And I had to fix it up when the head came off. Obviously, I bought this when the Lost World Jurassic Park came out. So it's probably 20 years old by now. So no wonder the plastic is a bit brittle. This is the Metriorhynchus by Chiodo. This isn't in the set that the previous ones are. This has a more naturalistic base. This is part of the Dino Land, I think, line. It's quite accurate because it's got very large hind flippers, but almost impossible to see forelimbs, which are held flush against the side of its body. And it has, of course, the tail-like fin. So although the Metriorhynchids were part of the Crocodilomorph or Crocodiliformes group, they're really unlike any crocodile today. Hi Cryo King 24. So this is another Archelon figure in the Kyoto set. Now, actually, I've never really compared this one and the other one in any great detail. So let's see. They're about the same size, but they are different in many ways. So this one on the left is much more like the leatherback turtle in that it's got these ridges running along its shell. Hello, scientific things. But both of them are really good, to be honest. Can't really complain. And no inaccuracies to think about, really. There's nothing to criticize them for. Really good figures. This is the Ichthyosaur. This is a skeleton of Futabosaurus, the Japanese elasmosaurid. This is an exclusive to the National Museum of Nature and Science in Japan. And there are two versions of this. One is this one, the skeleton. The other one, which is the next one we'll look at, is the fleshed out version. So delicate, they're actually really difficult to dust. In some ways, I'm making it worse, just putting extra globs of dust on it, but there's nothing we can do about that. And here is the counterpart of that Futabosaurus, the fleshed out version. It's in the same pose as the skeleton. You can see here. I think it's always nice when you've got the two versions of the same figure or the same species, both in the same pose, one with the bones, one with the flesh. If anybody has any questions about the Dinosaur Toy blog or this YouTube channel, my toy collection, or the plesiosaurs or marine reptiles in general, go ahead. Ask me anything. I might not answer, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Okay. This is a Elasmosaurus by Kyoto. I like this one because it's got little barnacles or some sort of creature living on its skin. Its forelimbs are very reminiscent of a humpback whale with ridges running along the front and back. And this figure comes in two color versions. This natural dark, almost black gray and white and the other version is a bright yellow version. So given that I only usually go for one, I decided to plump for this one over the other. JB and stuff, do you have a Safari Chronosaur? I do have both Safari Chronosauruses. I've got the original Carnegie collection version, which was given to me as a gift when I was in Copenhagen by the curator in the museum there when I was doing research in the museum for my PhD. And I also have the most recent version of the Chronosaurus, which I was also the scientific consultant for and worked closely with the sculptor to make sure it was as accurate as possible. So that one's done. I've been interested in Invicta figures lately. How hard are they to find? Not hard at all, Otaku Soridi. In fact, if you look on eBay, you can find them all the time, very cheap. So is there any particular one that you're interested in? Because I actually have a few duplicates and I'd be willing to trade them if you wanted to trade. Or sell them to you if you wanted to buy them. I think in the UK, because that's where they were produced, in a factory in Leicester, just up the road from me, they're much more common in the UK than anywhere else in the world. So they're easy to find here. You find them in second-hand shops quite a lot. This is the Tylosaurus by Kyoto. A really beautiful figure. It's a little bit outdated because of the lack of a half moon-shaped fin, and also bizarrely it doesn't have teeth in its upper jaw, only in its lower jaw. It's quite unlike Kyoto to make a mistake like that, but presumably the teeth are there but they're just hidden underneath the lip. So that's how I'd like to think of it. If you can hear the explosions, that's fireworks outside. This is the day before bonfire night, or Guy Fawkes night here in the UK. So there's a lot of, because it's Saturday today, there's a lot of fireworks and celebrations. This is the Kyoto Liopleurodon, a very streamlined figure. Takasauridi Reviews says, awesome, thanks for the information. I've got a lot of my figures in storage at the moment, but when I can, I'll try to find something to trade. It sounds good to me. If you've got any bizarre plesiosaurs, marine reptiles that I might not have, I'm willing to trade for anything, any marine reptile that I don't have. If you're in a different country to the UK, then you might have things that are really common over there that are difficult to get over here. So yeah, let me know what you've got. This is the Kyoto Plesiosaurus skeleton. Again, just like with the Pliosaurus skeleton, this is incredibly accurate. The details of the pectoral girdle are correct down to the specific details. Every single bone in the limb is in the right position and is present. I can't believe how much detail they've got into a tiny, tiny figure like this. They really are wonderful. Which is why they're the ones on my shelf, which are on the top, so that they can always be seen, never hiding in the background. And here is the Plesiosaurus by Kyoto in the flesh. Really beautiful colour scheme. That's something else that I need to commend Kyoto on. It's not just the detail and accuracy in their sculpts, it's the fine details in the paintwork. The eyes here, for example, they're probably not much bigger than a millimetre, and they've got a nicely distinct pupil and a very distinct orange eye, and then the head is green. I don't know how they get the details. They can't be hand painted. I don't think any hand would be steady enough. So it would be fascinating to see how they print the colour onto these models. Okay. And the last one. So this is the last one on the top. CryoKing 24. How common are Invicta models where you live? It's extremely rare here, but they're really nice. They're really common. Of course, they're not in production anymore, but they were sold all over the country. More or less every single museum would sell Invicta models, and so they were produced and sold in huge abundances. You can find any Invicta model on eBay at any one time. And you might even be able to spot. I have a few here. These are all duplicates that I have. So let's see. I've got, just to pick one at random, this is the Invicta Baryonyx, the monochrome version, which is holding a fish, and just a really beautiful naturalistic model. And I found this one on eBay UK with 6 others, and I think I paid about £3 for it, for everything. So they're really good, and even though I have it already, I buy these because I know how difficult they can be to get for other people outside of the UK, and so I like to have a stock of these for trades. So yeah. So if there's anything in particular that you're interested in or after, you can log into the Dinosaur Toy Forum. If you're not a member already, you can become a member. It's free. And go to the classified section and look for Dino Toy Forums trades, or just drop me a private message on the forum and we can work something out. That's one of the great things about the Dinosaur Toy Forum. This is the last Kyoto. This is the wonderfully slender, long-necked Tanystropheus. A really bizarre creature. One of the big mysteries of long-necked marine reptiles and semi-aquatic reptiles like this were, what were they using their long neck for? Especially the plesiosaurs, which were exclusively marine to brackish water animals. They didn't come out onto the land. And there's no other modern day underwater animal that has a long neck. So if you think about it, there's no long-necked fish, there's no long-necked whales or dolphins, no long-necked sea turtles, and it has to make you wonder, why did a plesiosaur have a long neck? You'd think if it was doing something that had an obvious advantage, then other sea creatures, fish for example, would have also evolved a long neck. But they didn't. So the fact that there's no other animal quite like a plesiosaur today means there's lots of questions about how they behaved. Again, these are really great. You can see how dusty they are, which is why we're doing this video. It's a little job I've been meaning to do for a while, but they're really great for displaying and saving space because underneath you can put other figures. This is a Jurassic Park pewter model. So these are, or die-cast model, I think. What does it say? 1993, Plesiosaurus, made in Macau. And there was many of these. They came in sets of 2, and I've got the whole set somewhere. We'll get around to dusting that one day. But the plesiosaur has been taken away from its counterparts and put onto the plesiosaur shelf with all of the other miniature plesiosaurs. Jetor asks, I would like to know your opinion about new marine reptile for my collection. Well, if you mean to sculpt for your own collection, then I'd have to recommend a plesiosaur that I named. So you've got Mosasaurid, Plesiosaurid, Pliosaurid, and Metriorhynchid. What you do need then, I think, is a Romaleosaurid. If you haven't done a Romaleosaurid yet, then you could pick an obvious choice, Romaleosaurus. But that's been done before, and you might as well pick something that hasn't been done before. So why not either the Aticadracon, which is a Romaleosaurid which I named a few years ago, or the Thaumatodracon, which is a Romaleosaurid from Lyme Regis, which I named I think I named earlier this year, actually. So you would be the first person guaranteed to have ever created this. Malawisaurus. Malawisaurus is not a marine reptile, right? This is one of the Panini miniatures. This is the Tylosaurus. This is the original version, which is bigger than some of the knockoff versions, and it has this really striking row of spines running along its back, which was a bit of a meme for the mosasaurs. We know that they didn't have them, but even today they're still often depicted with them. And I had that when I was a kid, one of my favorites. This is a screaming, gawping Chronosaurus. It's a bit of an unusual design. It's actually part of the same line as one of the other plesiosaurs we looked at earlier. It's in the same line as this one here, the Elasmosaurus. But I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of this line is. I've got it written down somewhere, but if either of you, any one of you know what line these two figures belong to, you can remind me in the chat. They're not particularly accurate, and this one's got a huge big red paintbrush mark in its gob, but they're quite fun. Could you write the name of the species that you have said? Yeah, I can. I'll just put this down. So the first one is a Hetangian species called Aticadracon. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Sorry. Aticadracon. In fact, Aticadracon. This is a 3D print of the skull of Aticadracon. It's much reduced, of course. This is a much smaller version, but this is a 3D print of the holotype specimen of the Aticadracon. The good thing about it is it's known from a complete skeleton, so you've got great information on the pose, on the proportions, the relative proportions of the head, the neck, and the body, which are quite unusual in Romaleosaurids, like Aticadracon. So Aticadracon is a Romaleosaurid. And then the other one that I would recommend is a plesiosaur, another Romaleosaurid called a Thaumatodracon. So Thaumatodracon I named just a few months ago, and this is a Romaleosaurid from the Cynomurian of Lyme Regis. And we know this from a complete skull and neck, but we don't know the proportions of the body, flippers, and tail. So if you went for that species, which you'd have to maybe fill in the gaps based on a related species like Romaleosaurus. This is a Chinasaur. No particular company. It doesn't even say made in China on the bottom, so it might not technically be a Chinasaur. Who knows? And this is a knockoff, I think, of another plesiosaur. So there's lots of versions of this plesiosaur in different shapes and in slightly different shapes and variations, in lots of different colors and sizes. This one is a Safari Limited Plesiosaurus. I don't think they make this one anymore. And I'm not sure if it was sold in tubes or if it was sold in sold separately. Recommend an ichthyosaurid. Not sure. An ichthyosaurid to sculpt. Which ichthyosaurs have you sculpted before? Any? This is actually, I was just talking about this little purple one here. So this is a similar model to this one here. This one comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes and variations. It isn't a coincidence, they are identical in every crucial way. They've got sort of horizontal lines running along their bellies. On the top of their flippers, they've got these striations running along the flippers, and this small one does too. So these are definitely variations on the same model. But again, it's a Chinasaur, and this one does say China on the flipper. Well, it's big enough to use a duster, I think. And also it matches my shirt. You have a Nothosaurid of this brand. I think I know the one you mean. I don't have it. I would love to get my hands on it. It's the one that's sort of in a similar pose to this, right? With a sort of frill running along the top and bottom of its tail. Yeah, I've been after that for a while, but have never been able to find it on eBay. This is a bizarre one. This is like a plesiosaur that's nearly all neck and then a tiny little body with tiny little flippers. So it's another Chinasaur. It does say, yeah, it says made in China on the bottom, but I'm not sure if it has a company name. It's very distinctive, so you think it would be quite easy to track down. So if any of you know what company makes this Chinasaur, then let me know. Cryo King 24 says its head looks like a duck. It does. It's a really bizarre figure. And Rex King says Chinasaur can be anything it wants. Well, if it says on the bottom made in the UK, but you don't know what brand it is, I think you'd struggle to call that a Chinasaur. So Chinasaur is used for basically any figure that hasn't got a company name associated with it, because they are nearly always made in China, but not necessarily. So you never know. This one is the Plesiosaurus by Dinocrats. I think it's relatively easy to find in the UK. A UKosaur, well, yeah, a UKosaur doesn't have the same ring to it as Chinasaur. In fact, for the Dinosaurs of China exhibition that I recently curated in Nottingham, we used the hashtag Chinasaur17. This one's quite a nice figure. It's got a really long tail, though, bizarrely long. Plesiosaurs don't have such long tails. This is a tiny knockoff version of the Panini Plesiosaurus. Oh no, Panini Elasmosaurus. So the original is just here. So that gives you an idea of the differences in the size. So this one is just a little bit smaller, and whereas the original says Elasmosaurus, China, and a number on the underside, the small version just says China. So this is a knockoff Chinasaur version of the original Panini figure. This one, let's have a look. I need to remind myself. This is a Colorata. This is the Colorata Mosasaur, which is attacking an ammonite. It's a very nice dynamic sculpt. Do I have any fake Papo? Do I have any fake Papo? No, I don't. Although I have seen them. I think I've seen them in. Yeah, I've seen them in the museum shop where I work. Even though I've told them. The bizarre thing is, in the museum shop, we stocked original Papo and fake Papo for about a third of the price and terrible quality. And I think that's such a shame, because I really want to be encouraging creativity and original sculptures, and not encouraging fake knockoff versions which undermine the real companies who are doing the real work and putting the effort into sculpting the models, paying sculptors, and in the case of Safari Limited and other companies, not necessarily Papo, getting the figures accurate. And the knockoff versions, of course, have a huge impact on that. It's sad, and unfortunately, retail teams do not really care so much about that. They really care more about profit margins, and visitors tend to go for the cheaper figures, unless their children are like I was when I was a kid and really wanted the originals, or if they care about quality. Didn't you help make the Safari Limited Chronosaurus? I did, yeah, which is another reason why I'm so adamant about encouraging shops stock the originals and not the knockoffs. Unfortunately, as a curator, I don't have a huge say in what the shops stock, but I do my best, and I at least point out when we are stocking things that I think are inappropriate. This is a colour variant of the Chap May plesiosaur. So there's this one here. Previously we had a look at another colour variation. That's this one here. But both of them are really nice. Really good details. Shame of you, work safari or collector are better. I don't quite know what you mean. Did you work on any collector figures? No, I've never worked on any collector figures. Never been approached by them. Although I'd love to. And the final figure on the top shelf here is this Bullyland. It says Bully, so this is a Bullyland figure. And we had a figure that looked similar to this earlier. I'm just looking for it now. Here. So this is a Chinasaur version, a knockoff version of the official Bullyland version on this side. So you name it, whatever the company, Collector, Safari, Papo, Bullyland, even random Chinasaurs, they are all knocked off all of the time, and there's very little anyone can do about it. Okay, now I can actually get to the surface to dust it. Okay. So before I go, let's see, we'll just have a quick chat. Did you work on the 2018 Safari? I did work on some of them, but I am sworn to secrecy. Cryo King 24. He's a marine reptile specialist, so I don't think so. No, they have used me as a consultant for some of their dinosaur figures as well as other critters. So yeah, I know things. Okay, thanks for joining me. I'll leave you to it. Until next time, bye.